Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. It is exactly 8:35 a.m. News and views on Salam Media. We're moving along now, and we'll be talking with Dr. Atilla Kisla. He is with the International Justice Cluster lead at the South Africa Litigation Centre. He's here, of course, to talk to us about our bold challenge. South Africa's a very bold challenge regarding a no to genocide and taking this case to the ICJ. But first up, I'm going to ask Dr. Atilla Kisla what exactly he does at the International Justice Cluster at the South African Litigation Centre. Undoubtedly, he does come from a strong legal background, and nice to be talking with him this morning. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me. Good morning.
What exactly do you do there?
Sorry. I'm the International Justice Cluster lead, like you mentioned. Sorry. And in that function, I usually am head of the program that deals with international criminal justice, as well as like serious business-related human rights violations. So my cases usually include the cases, crimes like war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide.
This process is very long-winded, is it not? Very, very sadly, look, as far as South Africa is concerned, we're so proud and so happy and supporting this initiative to take this matter to the ICJ, and then, of course, in time also to make certain that those people that are responsible for war crimes against humanity, like your Netanyahu's, Biden's, and other supremacists of the Western world, that they will be called to account for their heinous actions on innocent men, women, and children in Palestine in this particular instance. But let's look at South Africa's challenge to prove genocidal intent on behalf of the state of Apartheid Israel, to show a link between comments made by officials and the programmatic nature of the destruction of Gaza. It's very, very complex. It's very deep. And I know that it's going to take a long, long time before we can even see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. But can you break it down for us and explain to us how this process is going to work? And hopefully, inshallah, that we do stand a chance to eventually bring these criminals to account.
Sure. So what we have seen is, what we have seen yesterday is the filing of the memorial, so to say, South Africa's main submissions for the merits of the case. What we had seen before since December last year and throughout the year, those were usually submissions in relation to provisional measures that South Africa was asking for by the International Court of Justice. So now it made its submissions for the main case, for the merits of the case. And I believe since South Africa has filed their main submissions, the memorial, the State of Israel now has time until, I believe, July next year to file their counter memorial. And then the proceedings will just continue with all the parties that have declared to intervene in the matter. Of course, they will file their legal observations, and the court will set down a hearing and then hopefully have a judgment. However, this can still be a process of like several years. We have seen other cases, other genocide cases, where it took more than 10 years for the court to come to a final judgment. I hope it won't take that long in this matter, but it's not guaranteed just because South Africa has filed their memorial yesterday that we have a judgment fairly soon.
So, Dr. Atilla, in your opinion, I'm more than certain that Apartheid Israel will respond and perhaps deny that this is a genocide. Once again, Israel and the Western world are intent on saying that they have the right to protect themselves against, in their words, terrorists. So would South Africa have to define the word genocide? To me, I don't even, and of course I'm just a layperson, but I don't even see this as a genocide. I believe it's taking on proportions of a Holocaust. Your thoughts?
South Africa will have to prove that the crime of genocide was committed on behalf of the state of Israel. So, in that context, one key challenge of the South African submissions will be to make the case that Israel actually acted with genocidal intent. To prove that is quite a challenge, because we have seen from the previous jurisprudence and cases at the International Court of Justice that the court sets a very high bar to meet the standard for genocidal intent. And in that regard, it remains to be seen how the submissions deal with that. I haven't seen the submissions yet. I believe they are not fully public yet, so it's like more than 500 pages. So, but I'm sure South Africa in their submissions has attempted to prove the genocidal intent on behalf of the state of Israel. And for instance, all these comments or statements that we have seen by the Prime Minister or other state officials of Israel, South Africa has to show a link between those comments and the destruction of the Palestinians as a protected group under the Genocide Convention. Only if those statements and the evidence provide a link in South Africa's submissions, and the court is convinced by that, there I think South Africa has a strong case, and we'll have to see how that turns out. In that context, of course, all these, like what we see in the daily news, where it's a number of victims, but also whether there's any of how Israel is choosing their victims based on their membership, being Palestinians, and to what extent and whether Israel has destroyed cultural buildings, religious sites, to eradicate the protected group. These will all be factors that will be playing into the assessment or the court's assessment of genocidal intent.
I think two other very important issues here that perhaps you can give us some light on this is ethical imperative, moral leadership, because I think that would play out as well. South Africa's stance is rooted in a moral obligation to oppose injustice, echoing global calls for human rights and dignity for all peoples. That's the one issue. And then mobilizing global solidarity to encourage collective action amongst nations and civil societies to hold perpetrators accountable and to support Palestinian rights. And when I talk about global responsibility and moral leadership, this is not only in the context of Palestine, though we are focusing on Palestine in this instance, but this does actually relate to war crimes all around the world on minority groups, or whether there's, in Africa, I suppose even the Myanmar, the Rohingya people, that's another typical case of perhaps genocide. How do you see it?
I agree that this case actually reveals a lot of double standards if we look at states' positions. Let's take the example of, for instance, the U.S., who is standing up for human rights in so many other situations, but in this situation, and also even in this situation regarding Gaza, calls on Israel to adhere to international humanitarian law or any kind of international law. However, at the same time, they are delivering arms to Israel. Of course, this case reveals other double standards. You just mentioned the situation in Myanmar, where we had, which is another case that is before the International Court of Justice for violations of the Genocide Convention. And of course, this kind of case that South Africa has now started puts also, to a certain degree, a target on South Africa's back, and people will look into double standards on the part of South Africa. Unfortunately, South Africa, for instance, has also delivered arms to Myanmar in the times of the alleged genocide, so from 2017 to 2021. So I think it's the wake-up call for all states to apply international law equally and not have any kind of double standards and only apply the international law, relevant international law in one situation, but neglected in another one.
Dr. Atilla, we do need to wrap up, but very quickly, what I do need to ask you is, there was a breaking story last night, and it was the Apartheid Israeli Parliament that has said that they're banning UNRWA activities in Palestine. They're not going to allow them to assist Palestinian children. We understand 650,000 children will be deprived from education. And this, once again, smacks of collective punishment. Your thoughts?
I saw the report. I haven't looked in detail into it, but of course, like, it will impact the Palestinian people in Gaza again if the UN entity is now banned and cannot provide any aid. I mean, that also goes against most likely against the provisional measures that have been issued previously by the International Court of Justice. So I think these are some of the factors that I mentioned that certainly will play a role, and the court will take these kind of developments also into his assessment of the situation and deciding whether the crime of genocide has been committed.
Dr. Atilla Kisla, thank you indeed for your time. Wonderful talking with you. You are the International Justice Cluster Lead at the SALC. Thank you once again. Go well. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks so much.
It is exactly 8:47. Our next guest is standing by, and that, of course, is Dr. Gerard Verdoen. He is a toxicologist. We're going to be talking about the food poisoning crisis in the townships here in South Africa.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.